Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're cracking open the intellectual toolkit behind one of the world's biggest experiments in self-government. We're talking about the really powerful ideas that didn't just shape a revolution, but actually formed the DNA of American democracy. So let's dive in and see what they were working with.
Okay, so picture this. It's 1776, and these four words from Thomas Paine just electrify everything. They perfectly capture the feeling of a whole continent just teetering on the edge of a massive decision. And this wasn't just, a suggestion. It was a rallying cry for a brand new beginning, a total break from the most powerful empire on Earth. The stakes, they could not have been higher. But, once you decide to leave, you run smack into an even bigger problem. How do you actually build a government that's strong enough to work, but not so strong that it becomes a tyranny all over again? This was the absolute central challenge for the American revolutionaries. It's this incredibly delicate balancing act, a question that people have been wrestling with for centuries. If you get it wrong, you either end up with total chaos, or you just create the very monster you were trying to escape. So you see, their revolution wasn't just fought with guns on battlefields. It was also a battle of ideas, fought in pamphlets and town halls, all trying to answer that one huge fundamental question. So here's the dilemma in a nutshell. Think of it like a spectrum, right? On one end, you've got total, absolute freedom. The philosopher Thomas Hobbes called this a state of nature, and he warned it would basically be a constant state of war. Then, on the other end of the spectrum, you have absolute order. A king, a dictator, where it's peaceful, but you have zero liberty. The American founders, they were searching for that sweet spot, a third way, somewhere right in the middle. Now, luckily for them, they weren't starting from scratch. They had access to this incredible set of ideas that had been brewing over in Europe for about a century, this whole movement we now call the Enlightenment. And you can really think of it as their intellectual toolkit for building a whole new kind of nation. And this gets us to a really core debate. On one side, you've got the pessimist, Thomas Hobbes. He basically believed that without an all-powerful ruler, our lives would be just awful, pure chaos. But on the other side, you've got John Locke, who was way more optimistic. He argued that we're all born with natural rights, rights given to us by God, and that the only government that's legitimate is one that we the people actually agree to. And it's that idea from Locke that really lit the fuse for the American Revolution. So the first tool they pulled out of this kit was the social contract, and it's a huge idea. The concept is that government isn't just forced on us from on high. It's a deal. It's an agreement. We, the people, agree to give up a tiny piece of our absolute freedom. The freedom to do whatever we want, whenever we want. And in exchange, the government protects our really important freedoms, like our life and our liberty. The next tool, popular sovereignty, takes that deal a step further. It asks a really simple question. If government is a deal, then who's the boss? And Rousseau's answer was totally radical for the time. The people are. Not the king, not the parliament, the citizens are the ultimate authority. Government officials, they're just our employees, basically, hired to do what we say. This completely flipped the old model of power right on its head. And the last major tool in the kit is kind of the architectural blueprint, thanks to a guy named Montesquieu. He argued that to keep a government from becoming a tyranny, you got to split its power up. Don't give it all to one person or group. You divide it into a legislative branch that makes the laws, an executive branch to enforce them, and a judicial branch to interpret them. It's literally a design for limited government. Okay, so with this powerful toolkit of ideas, the social contract, popular sovereignty, separation of powers, the colonists were now ready to do a lot more than just complain about taxes. They were ready to build a full-blown case for independence. And that is precisely what the Declaration of Independence is. It is not just some angry letter to King George. No, it's a carefully constructed argument. It's like a legal and moral case presented to the entire world. And it uses the very tools we've just been talking about to justify cutting ties with Britain for good. Thomas Jefferson lays out their argument in 3 perfectly logical steps. First up, he states a core belief, which he took almost straight from John Locke. People have natural, unalienable rights. Step 2, he defines why governments even exist, echoing Locke and Rousseau. They're there to protect those rights, and only with our consent. And then, step 3, the big conclusion, if a government breaks that deal, if it violates our rights, then we, the people, have the right to change it, or get rid of it completely. But they didn't just stop with the theory. The biggest part of the Declaration is actually a huge list of grievances. This was their evidence. It's Jefferson basically saying, and here's our proof. Here is exactly how the king has broken the social contract. They list everything from unfair taxes to dissolving their local governments. They were systematically proving their case to the world. So they declared independence. They fought and won the war. But now came the really hard part, actually building that new government they had risked everything for. It was time to take that Enlightenment toolkit from theory and put it into practice by creating the United States Constitution. And what a team they put together for the job. I mean, you had the ultimate scholar, James Madison, who showed up with stacks of books and a plan. You had the one person everyone respected, George Washington, who gave the whole thing legitimacy. You had the wise old Benjamin Franklin offering his experience, and the brilliant Alexander Hamilton pushing for a nation that would be strong and respected. And this, right here, is where it all comes together. Every single big idea from that Enlightenment toolkit we talked about was woven directly into the Constitution's design. The social contract? Boom. It's right there in the first three words, we the people. Montesquieu's separation of powers? Well, that became the three branches of government. The whole idea of a limited government was built in with checks and balances, and the principle of republicanism, where you elect your leaders, that became the foundation for the entire system. Now, it's really important to get this. They didn't create a pure, direct democracy where everyone votes on everything. I mean, that would have been impossible on a national scale. Instead, they built a representative republic, a system where we, the citizens, elect people to go and represent us. It's a system designed to work for a large, diverse country. This blueprint, the one they designed over 200 years ago, it wasn't supposed to be some final, perfect answer set in stone. It was actually designed to be an enduring framework, something that could adapt and hopefully last for generations. So in the end, what the founders created was a system built on the rule of law, not the whims of a single person. And it's a system that's in a constant state of trying to manage that fundamental tension we started with, that tricky balance between the will of the majority and protecting the rights of minorities. And that leads us to one final thought. The people who wrote these documents used the most radical, cutting-edge ideas of their time to create a blueprint for a nation. But a blueprint is just a plan. The actual building is never really finished, which makes you ask, how are the tools from that original kit being used, reinterpreted, and maybe even challenged to solve the problems we face in the 21st century? That's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.